The Book of Ezra, Chapter 6, the Decree of Darius. Thereupon King Darius issued an order to search the archives in which the treasures were stored in Babylon. However, a scroll was found in Ecbatana, the stronghold in the province of Media, containing the following text and memorandum. In the first year of his reign, King Cyrus issued a decree. With regard to the house of God in Jerusalem, the house is to be rebuilt as a place for offering sacrifices and bringing burnt offerings. Its height is to be 60 cubits, and its width 60 cubits. It shall have 3 courses of cut stone for each one of timber. The costs are to be borne by the royal house. Also, let the gold and silver vessels of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took from the temple of Jerusalem and brought to Babylon, be sent back. Let them be returned to their place in the back. Let them be returned to their place in the temple of Jerusalem and deposited in the house of God. Now therefore, Tattenai, governor of the west of Euphrates, and Shethar-bozenai, and you, their fellow officials in west of Euphrates, stay away from there. Let the governor and the elders of the Jews continue the work on the house of God. They are to rebuild it on its former site. I also issue this decree concerning your dealing with these elders of the Jews in the rebuilding of that house of God. Let these men be repaid for their expenses in full and without delay from the royal revenue deriving from the taxes of west of Euphrates, so that the work not be interrupted. Whatever else is required, young bulls, rams, and lambs for burnt offerings to the God of heaven, wheat, salt, wine, and oil, according to the requirements of the priests who are in Jerusalem, let that they be delivered to them day by day without fail, that they may continue to offer sacrifices of pleasing odor to the God of heaven, and pray for the life of the king and his sons. I also issue this decree. If any man alters this edict, a beam is to be taken from his house, and he is to be lifted up and impaled on it, and his house is to be reduced to rubble for this offense. And may the God who causes his name to dwell there overthrow every king or people who may undertake to alter this decree or to destroy this house of God in Jerusalem. I, Darius, have issued this decree. Let it be diligently executed. The task finally completed, then Tattenai, the governor of west of Euphrates, and Shethar-bozenai and their fellow officials carried out with all diligence the instructions King Darius had sent them. The elders of the Jews continued to make progress in the building, supported by the message of the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, son of Iddo. They finished the building according to the command of the God of Israel and the decrees of Cyrus and Darius and of Artaxerxes, king of Persia. They completed the house on the 3rd day of the month Adar, in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. The Israelites, priests, Levites, and the other returned exiles celebrated the dedication of the house of God with joy. For the dedication of this house of God, they offered 100 bulls, 200 rams, and 400 lambs, together with 12 he-goats as a sin offering for all of Israel. In keeping with the number of the tribes of Israel, finally, they set up the priests in their classes and the Levites in their divisions for the service of God in Jerusalem, as was prescribed in the book of Moses. The Passover. The returned exiles kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. The Levites, every one of whom had purified himself for the occasion, sacrificed the Passover for all the exiles, for their colleagues, the priests, and for themselves. The Israelites who had returned from the exile and all those who had separated themselves from the uncleanliness of the Gentiles in the land shared in it. Seeking the Lord, the God of Israel, they joyfully kept the feast of unleavened bread for 7 days, for the Lord had filled them with joy by making the king of Assyria favorable to them, so that he gave them help in their work in the house of God, the God of Israel. 2. The work of Ezra. Ezra Chapter 7. Ezra, priest and scribe. After these events, during the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, son of Sariah, son of Azariah, son of Hilkiah, son of Shallum, son of Zadok, son of Ahitub, son of Amariah, son of Azariah, son of Marioth, son of Zariah, son of Utsai, son of Bukai, son of Abishua, and of Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the high priest, This Ezra came up from Babylon. He was a scribe, well versed in the law of Moses, given by the Lord, the God of Israel. The king granted him all that he required, because the hand of the Lord his God was over him. Some of the Israelites and some priests, Levites, singers, gatekeepers, and temple servants also came up to Jerusalem in the 7th year of King Artaxerxes. Ezra came to Jerusalem in the 5th month of that 7th year of the king. On the 1st day of the 1st month, he began the journey up from Babylon. And on the 1st day of the 5th month, he arrived at Jerusalem, for the favoring hand of his God was over him. Ezra had set his heart on the study and practice of the law of the Lord and of teaching statutes and ordinances in Israel. The decree of Artaxerxes. This is a copy of the rescript which King Artaxerxes gave to Ezra, the priest scribe. The scribe versed in matters concerning the Lord's commandments and statutes for Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, scribe of the law of God of heaven. Greetings. And now I have issued this decree, that anyone in my kingdom belonging to the people of Israel, its priests or Levites, who is willing to go up to Jerusalem with you may go. For you are the one sent by the king and his 7 counselors to supervise Judah and Jerusalem with regard to the law of your God, which is in your possession, and to bring the silver and gold which the king and his counselors have freely contributed to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, as well as all the silver and gold which you may receive throughout the province of Babylon, together with its voluntary offerings. The people and priests freely contributed for the house of their God in Jerusalem. Therefore you must use this money with all diligence to buy bulls, rams, lambs, and the grain offerings and libations proper to these, and offer them on the altar of your house of your God in Jerusalem. You and your kinsmen may do whatever seems to you best to you with the remainder of the silver and gold as your God wills. The vessels given to you for the service of the house of your God, you are to deposit before the God of Jerusalem. Whatever else you may be required to supply for the needs of the house of your God, you may draw from the royal treasury. Artaxerxes, the king, issued this decree to all the treasurers of west of Euphrates: whatever Ezra the priest, scribe of the law of the God of heaven, requests of you, let it be done with all diligence. Within these limits, silver 100 talents, wheat 100 cores, wine 100 baths, oil 100 baths, salt without limit. Let everything that is decreed by the God of heaven be carried out exactly for the house of the God of heaven, that wrath may not come upon the realm of the king and his sons. We also inform you that it is not permitted to impose taxes, tributes, or tolls on any priest, Levite, singer, gatekeeper, temple servant, or any other servant of that house of God. As for you, Ezra, in accordance with the wisdom of your God, which is in your possession, appoint magistrates and judges to administer justice to all the people in west of Euphrates, to all that is, who know the laws of your God. Instruct those who do not know these laws. All who will not obey the law of your God and the law of the king, let judgment be executed upon them with all diligence, whether death or corporal punishment or confiscation of goods or imprisonment. Ezra prepares for this journey. Blessed be the Lord, the God of our ancestors, who put it into the heart of the king, thus to glorify the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, and who let me find favor with the king and his counselors, and with all the most influential royal officials. I, therefore, took courage, and with the hand of the Lord, my God, over me, I gathered together Israelite leaders to make the return journey with me. Ezra Chapter 8. Ezra's Caravan. Okay. These are the heads of the ancestral houses and the genealogies of those who returned with me from Babylon during the reign of King Artaxerxes. Of the descendants of Phinehas, Gershon. Of the descendants of Ithamar, Daniel. Of the descendants of David, Hattush, son of Shechaniah. Of the descendants of Parosh, Zechariah, and with him 150 males were enrolled. Of the descendants of Pahathmob, Eliahonai, son of Zechariah, and with him 200 males. Of the descendants of Zattush, Shechaniah, son of Jahaziel, and with him 300 males. Of the descendants of Adin, Ebed, son of Jonathan, and with him 50 males. Of the descendants of Elam, Josiah, son of Athaliah, and with him 70 males. Of the descendants of Shephatiah, Zebadiah, son of Michael, and with him 80 males. Of the descendants of Job, Obadiah, son of Jehiel, and with him 218 males. Of the descendants of Bani, Shelamoth, son of Josephiah, and with him 160 males. Of the descendants of Babai, Zechariah, son of Babai, and with him 28 males. Of the descendants of Azgad, Johanan, son of Hakatan, and with him 110 males. Of the descendants of Adonakam, younger sons, whose names were Eliaphaleh, Jael, and Shemaiah, and with them 60 males. Of the descendants of Bigvai, Uthai, son of Zakur, and with him 70 males. Final preparations of the journey assembled them by the river and flows toward Ahava, where he camped for 3 days. There I perceived that both laymen and priests were present, but I could not discover a single Levite. So I sent for discerning leaders, Eleazar, Ariel, Shemaiah, Uribe, Elnathan, Nathan, Zechariah, and Meshullam, with a command for Idu, the leader in the palace, Casaphiah, instructing them what to say to Idu and his kinsmen and to the temple servants in Casaphiah, in order to procure for us ministers for the house of our God. Since the favoring hand of our God was over us, they sent to us a well-instructed man, one of the descendants of Mali, son of Levi, son of Israel, namely Sherebiah, with his sons and kinsmen 18 men. They also sent us Hashabiah, and with him Jeshiah, descendants of Merari, and their kinsmen and their sons 20 men. Of the temple servants, those whom David and the priests appointed to serve the Levites, there were 220. All these were enrolled by name. Then I proclaimed a fast there by the river of Ahava, that we might humble ourselves before our God, to seek from him a safe journey for ourselves, for our children, and all of our possessions. For I was ashamed to ask the king for troops and horsemen to protect us against against enemies along the way, since we had said to the king, the favoring hand of our God is over all who seek him, but his fierce anger is against all who forsake him. So we fasted, seeking this from our God, and it was granted. Next I selected 12 of the priestly leaders, along with Sherebiah, Hashabiah, and 10 of their kinsmen, and I weighed out before them the silver and gold in the vessels offered for the house of our God by the king, his counselors, his officials, and all the Israelites of that region. I weighed out into their hands these amounts: silver 650 talents, silver vessels 100, gold 100 talents, 20 golden bowls valued at 1,000 dirhams, 2 vases of excellent polished bronze as precious as gold. I addressed them in these words: You are consecrated to the Lord, and the vessels are are also consecrated. The silver and the gold are a voluntary offering to the Lord, the God of your ancestors. Watch over them carefully until you weigh them out in Jerusalem in the presence of the chief priests and Levites and the leaders of ancestral houses of Israel, in the chambers of the house of the God of the Lord. The priests and the Levites then took over the silver, the gold, and the vessels that had been weighed out to bring them to Jerusalem, to the house of our God. Arrival in Jerusalem. We set off from the river of Ahava on the 12th day of the first month to go to Jerusalem. The hand of our God remained over us, and he protected us from enemies and robbers along the way. We arrived in Jerusalem. There we rested for 3 days. On the 4th day, the silver, the gold, and the vessels were weighed out in the house of our God and given to the priest Meremoth, son of Uriah, with whom was Eleazar, son of Phinehas. They were assisted by the Levites, Josabad, son of Jeshua, and Nosadiah, son of Binui. Everything was in order as to the number and weight, and the total weight was registered. At that same time, those who had returned from the captivity of the exiles offered as burnt offerings to the God of Israel 12 bulls for all of Israel, 96 rams, 77 lambs, and 12 goats as sin offerings, all these as a burnt offering to the Lord. Finally, the orders of the king were prescribed to the king's satraps and to the governors in west of Euphrates, who gave their support to the people and to the house of God. Ezra Chapter 9, the crisis of mixed marriages. When these matters had been concluded, the leaders approached me with this report: Neither the Israelite laymen, nor the priests, nor the Levites have kept themselves separate from the peoples of the lands and their abominations. Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, Ammonites, Moabites, Egyptians, and Amorites. For they have taken some of their daughters as wives for themselves and their sons, thus intermingling the holy seed with the peoples of the lands. Furthermore, the leaders and rulers have taken a prominent part in the apostasy. Ezra's reaction. When I had heard this, I tore my cloak and my mantle, plucked hair from my head and beard, and sat there devastated. Around me gathered all who were in dread of the sentence of the God of Israel on the apostasy of the exiles, while I remained devastated until the evening sacrifice. And at that time of the evening sacrifice, I rose in my wretchedness, and with cloak and mantle torn, I fell on my knees, stretching out my hands to the Lord my God. A penitential prayer. I said to my God, I am too ashamed and humiliated to raise my face to you, my God, for our wicked deeds are heaped up above our heads, and our guilt reaches up to heaven. From the time of our ancestors, even to this day, our guilt has been great, and for our wicked deeds we have been delivered. We and our kings and our priests into the hands of the kings of the foreign lands, to the sword, to captivity, to pillage, and to disgrace, as it is in this case today. And now, only a short time ago, mercy came to us from the Lord our God, who left a remnant and gave us a stake in his holy place. Thus our God has brightened our eyes and given us relief in our slavery. For slaves we are, but in our slavery our God has not abandoned us. Rather, he has turned the goodwill of the kings of Persia towards us. Thus he has given us new life to raise again the house of our God and restore its ruins, and has granted us a protective wall in Judah and Jerusalem. But now, our God, what can we say after all of this? For we have abandoned your commandments, which you gave through your servants the prophets. The land which you are entering to take as your possession is a land unclean with the filth of the peoples of the lands, with the abominations with which they have filled it with from one end to the other by their uncleanness. Do not then give your daughters to their sons in marriage, and do not take their daughters for your sons. Never promote their welfare and prosperity. Those who will grow strong enjoy the produce of the land, and leave it as an inheritance for your children forever. After all that has come upon you for our evil deeds and our great guilt, though you, our God, has made less of our sinfulness than it deserved, and has allowed us to survive as we do, shall we again violate your commandments by intermarrying with these abominable peoples? Would you not become so angered with us to destroy us without remnant or survivor? Lord God of Israel, you are just. Yet we have been spared, the remnant we are today. Here we are before you in our sins. Because of all this, we can no longer stand in your presence. Ezra Chapter 10, Response to the Crisis. While Ezra prayed and acknowledged their guilt, weeping and prostrate before the house of God, a very large assembly of Israelites gathered about him, men, women, and children, and the people wept profusely. Then Shechaniah, the son of Jehiel, one of the descendants of Elam, made this appeal to Ezra: We have indeed betrayed our God by taking as wives foreign women of the peoples of the land. Yet in spite of this, there still remains a hope for Israel. Let us therefore enter into a covenant before our God to dismiss all of our foreign wives and the children born of them, in keeping with what you, my Lord, advise, and those who are in dread of the commandments of our God. Let it be done according to the law. Rise then, for this is your duty. We are with you, so have courage and act. Ezra stood and demanded an oath from the leaders of the priests, from the Levites, and from all of Israel, that they would do as had been proposed, and they swore it. Then Ezra left his place before the house of God and entered the chamber of Johanan, son of Eliashib, where he spent the night, neither eating food nor drinking water, for he was in mourning over the apostasy of the exiles. A proclamation was made throughout Judah and Jerusalem that all the exiles should gather together in Jerusalem, and that whoever failed to appear within 3 days would, according to the judgment of the leaders and elders, suffer the confiscation of all of his possessions and would be excluded from the assembly of the exiles. All of the men of Judah and Benjamin gathered together in Jerusalem within the 3-day period. It was in the 9th month. On the 20th day of that month, all of the people sitting in the open place before the house of God were trembling, both over the matter at hand and because it was raining. Then Ezra the priest stood up and said to them, Your apostasy is taking foreign women as wives, has added to Israel's guilt. But now give praise to the Lord, the God of your ancestors, and do his will. Separate yourselves from the peoples of the land and from the foreign women. In answer, the whole assembly cried out with a loud voice, Yes, it is our duty to do as you say. But the people are numerous, and it is the rainy season, so that we cannot remain outside. Besides, this is not a task that can be performed in a single day or even 2. For those of us who have sinned in this regard are many. Let our leaders represent the whole assembly. Then let all those in our cities who have taken foreign women for wives appear at appointed times, accompanied by the elders and magistrates of each city in question, till we have turned away from us our God's burning anger over this affair. Only Jonathan son of Asahel and Josiah son of Tikva were against this proposal, with Meshullam and Shabbatai the Levite supporting them. The exiles did as agreed. Ezra the priest appointed as his assistants men who were heads of ancestral houses, one for each ancestral house, all of them designated by name. They held sessions to examine the matter, beginning with the first day of the 10th month. By the first day of the first month, they had finished dealing with all the men who had taken foreign women for wives. The list of transgressors. Among the priests, the following were found to be taken foreign women for wives. Of the descendants of Jeshua, son of Jozadak, and his kindred, Maaseiah, Eleazar, Yarib, and Jedaliah. They pledged themselves to dismiss their wives, and as a guilt offering for their guilt, they gave a ram from the flock. Of the descendants of Immer, Hanani, and Zebediah. Of the descendants of Harim, Maaseiah, Elisha, Shemaiah, Jehiel, and Uzziah. Of the descendants of Pashur, Eliani, Maaseiah, Ishmael, Nathaniel, Josabad, and Elisai. And Elasa. Of the Levites, Josabad, Shemai, Kaliah, also called Kalida, Pethahiah, Judah, and Eleazar. Of the singers, Eliashib. Of the gatekeepers, Shalom, Telem, and Uri. Of the people of Israel, of the descendants of Parash, Ramiah, Itziah, Melchijah, Miljamin, Eleazar, Melchijah, and Benaiah. Of the descendants of Elam, Mattaniah, Zechariah, Jehiel, Abdi, Jeremoth, and Elijah. Of the descendants of Zatu, Eliani, Eliashib, Mattaniah, Jeremoth, Zabad, and Atzizah. Of the descendants of Abai, Jehohanan, Hananiah, Zabai, and Athaliah. Of the descendants of Benai, Meshullam, Miluk, Adiah, Jeshub, Sheol, and Jeremoth. Of the descendants of Pahath Moab, Adnah, Shalal, Benaiah, Maaseiah, Mattaniah, Batzalel, Binui, and of Manasseh. Of the descendants of Harim, Eleazar, Ishijah, Melchijah, Shemaiah, Shimeon, Benjamin, Meluk, Shemariah. Of the descendants of Hashum, Mattani, Mattata, Zabad, Eliphale, Jeremiah, Manasseh, Shemai. Of the descendants of Begui, Madai, Amram, Uel, Benaniah, Bediah, Shaluhai, Vaniah, Meremoth, Eliashib, Mattaniah, and Jesu. Of the descendants of Binui, Shammai, Shelemiah, Nathan, and Adiah. Of the descendants of Zekai, Sheshai, Sharai, Atzarel, Shelemiah, Shemariah, Shalom, Amariah, Joseph. Of the descendants of Nebo, Jael, Mattathiah, Zabad, Zabina, Jedi, Joel, Benaniah. All these had taken foreign wives, but they sent them away, both the women and their children. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. God bless you.